Hey, Soul Recovery community, it's Rev Rachel, and I just wanted to give you a heads up on the next Soul Recovery free support group open to everyone. This is going to be on the first Monday of every month, so our next one is on October 7th from 6 to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Zoom. If you've already registered, be on the lookout that day or the day before for an email with the link, same link every time. And if you haven't registered yet, go to recoveryoursoul.net and sign up there. See you soon. For today's episode, I'm stepping outside of my normal conversations around codependence and addiction and how to not be a people pleaser because I'm feeling the weight of the world. I'm feeling the heaviness that's coming from our political situation right now. I'm feeling the heaviness of the wars that are happening and the storms that have just hit Florida and parts of our country. And so I wanted to address from the hat of Rev Rachel, really stepping into the spiritual path of a happy and healthy life. The aspects of soul recovery that are around us co-creating with something even greater still and moving into that place in our heart where we can touch in on these difficult situations, hold space, have compassion, and not get whipped into worry. It's so easy to worry. So in this episode, I hope that I can give you some tools to use in your own life as the world around us feels heavy. We can follow a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life. We can be a light and we can offer light to others. Enjoy. Welcome to the Recover Your Soul podcast, a spiritual path to a happy and healthy life. My name is Reverend Rachel Harrison. I started Recover Your Soul after having profound changes in my life from my recovery of alcoholism, codependency, and control addiction. I was guided to share the tools and principles of spirituality and soul recovery to help others transform their lives as mine was transformed. For us to overcome external circumstances, we need to turn the attention to ourselves, focusing on our inner change and healing. Positive results in our lives will follow. Welcome to the Recover Your Soul podcast. It's Rev Rachel, and I am so grateful that we get to spend this time here together. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being part of the community. Thank you for sharing this podcast with others. Thank you for coming back time and time again. And if you're new, we are so glad that you are here. I wanted to touch in on the complexity of what's going on in our world right now, because we spend a lot of time and energy talking about what's going on within our own lives and how we can weather the storms of our own life. And right now we are actually in a place, as I record this, Hurricane Milton has just gone over Florida. We have fires in a lot of the country. We have 2 wars going on, and we also have an election coming. So there's a lot of energy and a lot of complexity happening that is really affecting people in a very day-to-day real way. And so I wanted to not dismiss the truth that there is a heaviness in the consciousness of all of us right now. And there are real boots on the ground, difficult things happening in many of your lives and in the people that you know. And when we look at the soul recovery perspective of how can I show up as my authentic self? How can I not people please or be codependent or worry about or be in a space where my mind is consumed with the fear of what's happening for other people? And yet at the same time, how can I be more connected to be of service in ways that are truly beneficial for those people around me? And how can I use my energy and my light to bring light to others? I wanted to talk about this because this is going to be more of a Rev Rachel spiritual metaphysical talk than talking about some of the other things that we talk about in other episodes. And I want to talk about this because I think it's remiss if we don't hold the larger collective of everyone and what's happening in these bigger situations, because they do weigh heavy on our hearts. It can be very difficult to be okay when you know that so many people are not okay. And I know that it is important for us to really be in our own self, to be in our own experience, and be doing this from a place that this morning when I was journaling about it, what I said is the more spirituality that I bring into my life, the more I realize there is no me, it is only us. But I am not responsible for the us. I am only responsible for the me. And at the same time, I feel the us. So that's what I want to talk about today, is how to be in these complex times and really be caring for yourself, and what are the tools that we can use to offer to be helpful to others. This morning I woke up pretty early, maybe around 5 or 6 a.m. the first time I woke up. And I woke up with this big, like my heart felt heavy. And what I was thinking about was all the people in Florida who were waking up this morning to wonder whether their house was still there or what the damage was. And I remember that feeling from when my mom lost her house in the fire here in Louisville, that there was this time of unknowing when everything was happening. And then there's the morning after. And Rich had ridden his bicycle up to my mom's neighborhood and witnessed all of the houses that had burned down. And my mom had gone the night of the fire and seen her neighborhood burn down, but it was hard to know whether her particular house, what was going on with her particular house. And there were a few houses which miraculously were left standing. That happens all the time, right? Like whether it's a storm or a fire or whatever, sometimes there's these houses that are untouched, right? You wonder how all that happens. So Rich rode his bike up and saw that indeed her house was gone, and took a couple of pictures and sent them to us. And there's this feeling when everything that you've known shifts and changes. Everything changes. It's a defining moment when everything changes. And there's a lot of people right now who are in that defining moment. And so this morning, what I was feeling this compassion for these people, for millions of people who are without power, millions of people who have been affected, and for those people who really have been affected, right? And I was so grateful that instead of panic, which was my first hit, right? The first, that wave of just real sadness and despair, I almost immediately moved into a space of compassion and using the Buddhist metta prayers. And it's, may all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be happy. May all beings find peace. And as I recited that metta prayer and thought of those people in Florida, I could feel an opening within my heart that allowed the space to just hold space for all of it. There's this piece of me that always wants to be fixing or helping. It's still in there. I hold space for so many people in the support group that we have, or when people come for coaching, or just really having an awareness of the expanse of this particular community and holding emotional space for all of you. And I want to hold that space from a place of compassion instead of empathy. And we've talked about this before, where empathy is the piece where we feel the feeling. We're empathetic, right? Many of us have this part of us that actually feels the feelings of others. And we feel that feeling, but we have this movement from wanting to fix it for them. In compassion, we hold space for the feeling, and we recognize that they have the capacity to be with it in their own way. That we trust and know that they too are being held by something even greater still. And in soul recovery, it's so important that you feel this knowing that having a spiritual life, that being connected to whatever higher power is for you, whatever the collective energy of love, the higher consciousness, God, universe, source, spirit, whatever that is for you, that you have created that space for you, that you're working and cultivating that relationship with source for your own experience. I believe there's many languages that speak of the love of spirit. many ways to get up the mountain to our own enlightenment and our own connection to Source. And we fight over what is the right words, what is the right way, that this is the only way to heaven or to our higher consciousness, that we fight over whether there's heaven or not heaven, whether there's heaven or hell. I mean, people are just at each other about them being right. And in soul recovery, we're actually releasing all of that. The attachment, we are detaching even from the concept that there is only one path, whatever is right for you. But when we move into compassionate space, what we're opening up is we're opening up that all of us, there is no me, there is we. All of us have the capacity to touch into this greater energy, this higher consciousness, and to recognize that we are given the energy, the support, the guidance, the intuition, the fortitude, the strength to handle anything, to handle anything. Are you ready to step into your soul recovery? Well, I am here to support you as your spiritual coach. Visit the website to book one-on-one coaching sessions with me as we transform your life through working the 9 steps of soul recovery. You can also choose to work the steps on your own through the modules at your own pace. I'm excited to also be announcing that there are retreats every year, both in Colorado and other places in the country, workshops and events, and I hope that you also will join us the first Monday of every month from 6 to 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for the free Zoom support group. This is an amazing place for us to connect, learn, and share our stories. And don't forget to join the private Facebook group for soul recovery, inspiration, connection, answering each other's questions, and giving shout outs. I thank you for supporting this podcast either by being a Patreon member, Apple Podcast subscriber, and getting that extra episode every Friday, or by your one-time donations or your small monthly donations that are found in the show notes. You are helping spread the soul recovery message and supporting this community. Visit the website recoveryoursoul.net for dates, times, everything that's happening, register for the support group, and how to stay connected. Together, we can do the work that will recover your soul. And that doesn't mean that it isn't hard. It means that you can do it. You can do it. I see all these pictures of the last hurricane. The people are shoveling mud. You know, my mom went through her house that burned and she did it. She went through that process. She had to fight the insurance company for money. She ended up being able to buy a house. She went from having 3,000 square feet of belongings to having what fit in her Subaru. She did it. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of grief. There was a lot of sadness. There was a lot of difficulty. But when we are in a space of trusting source energy, connecting to whatever that is for you, you don't feel like you're doing it alone. And this collective energy that we're in that is indeed heavy, not only the storms, not only the fires, not only the 2 major wars that are going on with the potential of more escalation of those wars, the people who are suffering in those wars, but also the political divide and coming up to the election and the energy that's behind it, that is real. That energy that is vibrating around all of us is heavy and it is real. And when you have tender hearts like I know that you do, you feel that energy. We feel that energy in our families. We feel that energy around us in the world. And so it's not about just pushing it away and dismissing that it exists. It's around stepping more fully into our internal knowing and our connection with this something greater still, and not falling into our behaviors and patterns that want to worry, that want to fix it, that want to be afraid, that spin that wheel of we're powerless over everything outside of ourselves. And yet we spin our wheel of trying to figure out how we can fix it for somebody else. There's nothing that I can do for all the people in Florida other than send some money and hold space for them. Really hold space for them. See them in the light. And that gives me something to do. It's the same with my family. if I'm coming down into my smaller family situation, when something's happening within my family, instead of being afraid, I probably said this before, but in the Bible, over 400 times it says, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. How can we hold space for ourselves to allow us to trust that each one of us is resourced and held through the difficult times? There is no promise that life is not complicated and does not have major things going on, but our worry is wasted energy. Nothing ever got better from worrying. There's some quote that's like, nothing ever was achieved better because someone worried about it. But we worry. We worry intensely. We worry about others. We worry about what's happening in our future. We worry, and that worry erodes our ability to be present in the moment for where we are right here. And sometimes those present moments are not easy. But when you step into changing a way that you see it, God, help me be able to see this differently. Resting in the knowing that you are held in the hands of divine energy. God, good, source, whatever you want to call it. Can we step into a place where we open our hearts, where we allow and accept things to be complicated, where we feel our feelings? And what I recognize in this situation of everything that's going on is I feel sad. It's okay to feel sad. Like, it's actually really important to allow your feelings to come in. I feel sad that our country is so divided. I feel sad that it doesn't feel like there's an opening for people to have differing opinions, that there's so much rhetoric around who's right and who's wrong. Right now we're doing a book study in the bonus episodes of the Recovery Soul podcast on Apple Podcasts and Patreon. And it's a book study on the 5 levels of attachment by Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. And it's really fascinating to look at how our attachment, this is such a soul recovery, essential piece of the soul recovery, how our perceptions, what our beliefs are, how attached we are to those beliefs, and how they're affecting our life. And if we have a belief and an attachment that says these people will never get through it, or if somebody believes these things, then they're not good, or our country's going to go to crap if this happens, or if this person wins. I mean, feel how heavy all of those attachments are to these belief systems. But when we start to open up on a spiritual level, we start to be more curious, we start to be more open, we start to recognize that maybe there's more possibilities, that if we believe that Spirit is indeed in charge of co-creating with us, I don't really, sometimes people will say, Spirit's in charge, this was determined, this was supposed to happen. Well, bad things happen. And how does that feel when you get cancer, or whether your house was burned down, or a flood washed all of your things away, or your family member died in a tragic accident? What does that mean, that it was in the hands of God, or it was supposed to happen? I think it's bigger than that. I think that that's an attachment to a belief system, that we just recognize that being human beings are complicated, and people get sick, and disasters happen, and massive accidents happen that are tragic. But we can open to the space that says we can co-create with Spirit within our own minds to experience it from a place of awareness, a place of love, a place of trust, a place of faith, that we can handle it, that we can be resourced to handle it, that we can feel the feelings in that moment. And these meta prayers, these abilities to really utilize the power and the energy of light and love and kindness and generosity, I do believe counterbalance the energy that is heavy. And it isn't about Pollyanna being so happy and bright and smiley and forgetting or pretending like there's not something really happening. In the concept of denial in spirituality, it's not that you're denying that it's happening, it's denying that it has power over you. You can be in the heavy feeling, but you can deny that it is going to have power over you. And that is strength. That's the place where you can really begin to step into your own experience of spirit. And when you start looking at religions and you start looking at the prayers and you start looking at everything underneath, there's this mystical, metaphysical aspect of everything that is around love and support and kindness and compassion and service, and that we are all one. So of course, when they're hurting, you're hurting. But it's also okay to be okay, even if they're not okay. And that doesn't mean that you can't hold space for them and have compassion and grace for them. You know, sometimes we feel like, again, you're only as happy as your least happy child, was what I heard at some point in raising kids. But that is important to begin to really claim your independence of your own being. You can be happy and have fulfillment and joy in your own life and have compassion and deep, deep awareness of other people's suffering and not feel like you have to fix or change or worry and hold on to grief and grievance and sadness for their sake. We can rest in the knowledge that we are held by something even greater still. All of us are. And that there's unlimited love and limited light and limited creative energy that fixes and changes and grows. Now, sometimes in storms, everything gets completely washed away and there's incredible difficulty and complexity that happens within that. And yet there's also renewal and rebirth and an opportunity for change and an opportunity for things to be updated and shifted and grow. I know in Louisville, they're building all the homes. 1,000 homes got burned down. And you know what it created? It created an entire industry for a whole bunch of people that needed work. It's created the ability for people to build homes of their dreams, to be able to have it look and feel exactly like what they wanted. And for some people, they have continued to be in the lack. And that's their experience. They're entitled to that experience. They're holding on to the fear. They're holding on to the pain. That is their experience. And for others, they really see it as a gift to have been able to open their hearts even more through tragedy. Sometimes our hearts expand even more. We realize there's more capacity to hold on to everything and to bring more spirit into your life. Our darkest moments sometimes are the ones that bring us the most learning. And my mom, who ended up not rebuilding because she knew that she didn't want to do that at 70-something years old, moved into a house that's better suited for her. She's filled it with all the stuff that she loves, books and sewing materials and beautiful things from her last couple trips. And she loves her house. She sits and has coffee on her back deck looking out over this field. She's closer to me. It's one level. You know, she often reflects that who would have thought 3 years ago, as we're coming up to the fire 3 years ago, that it would have created a life that actually was more aligned for her and that she's very happy. Well, she had to go through a lot of things to get there, but she chose every step of the way, whether she was going to be in the light or whether she was going to be in the dark, whether she was going to choose love or whether she was going to choose fear. So we want to hold the space to be in all of it, to not dismiss it, to not try to spiritually bypass it and just go to the everything's working out for its highest good. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Being in the real life, the real heaviness of what is happening in our lives is real. But we get to decide how we're going to interact with it. We get to choose whether we are going to open our hearts to this energy that is around us that will provide us with insight, with wisdom, with strength, with the ability to have things work in a flow, that one thing leads to the next, that these things begin to come together. And when we hold love of everything and everyone, regardless of what they believe, regardless of what is happening in their lives, regardless of how they're responding or reacting, regardless of what they are doing, and we hold them in light and love, healing happens for us and for everyone else. So we are indeed resting in the arms of something greater still. And may you find solace within that space to be tender to your heart that might feel heavy, whether it's in your own life with your own family or in the greater world. But being in a community like this one allows you to remember that you're not alone, that you are indeed here on purpose, that greater still brought you here to me, to each other. I don't know anything that you don't know already within you. Everything that I say that resonates with you already is in your heart, is already your own wisdom. And as I bring in all the books and all the studying that I do, I feel more and more aware that I know less and less and less. And at the same time, I feel whole, I feel resourced, I feel connected, I feel curious. And I have more ability to hold space for what feels heavy and feel those feelings, but not get weighed down by fear. That is my hope for you as well. Until next time, namaste. Thank you for listening, and I hope that helps support your soul recovery process. I just wanted to give you a quick reminder that every Friday is the Recover Your Soul bonus podcast, and this is available both to Apple Podcast subscribers for $3.99 a month, or it's available for both free and paid Patreon members. So as a Patreon member, you can choose, do you want to support the podcast with $5, $10, or $25 a month? Totally volunteer, but to let you know that if you want to listen to those bonus episodes, incredible interviews, wonderful book studies, you don't have to be a paid member. You can access them in the first week or two that they're available free on Patreon. This community is so important to me, and I want you to know I treat it with love and consideration. If you want coaching, I'm here for you. You want to come to a retreat, I'm here for you. You want to come to the free Soul Recovery Support Group, the community is here for you. Watch us on Facebook, Instagram, follow us on all the social media for daily inspiration. Be part of the Facebook group. And one of the most important things is that you share this podcast with people that you think that it will resonate with, that you think that they're interested. Give it 5 stars, give it a review. We are growing this community together because together we can do the work that will recover your soul. The Recover Your Soul podcast and its content is for educational purposes only and is not allied or representative of any organizations or religions. It's based on the opinions and experience of Reverend Rachel Harrison. Recover Your Soul claims no responsibility to any persons or entity for any liability, loss, damage, or cause alleged to be caused directly or indirectly as a result of its use. Applications or interpretations of the information represented herein. Take what you need and leave the rest.